Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle report. Extra spicy, double Questors, so 2 units of Questor Soulsworn deployed on the battlefield at the same time, for the first time on this channel, against the vile, disgusting, swamp-dwelling Kruleboyz. So, there is an Age of Sigmar tournament this weekend, and I committed to using this list, and I thought, why don't I actually practice with a list and then not change it, just practice and then run that at a tournament and see what happens, because that's a novel concept for me. Usually I'll run a list to try something out for a tournament and then end up taking something totally different a couple of days later. This time I'm sticking with it regardless. So let's dive in and have a look, shall we? Okay, so the battle plan we're playing, Grasp of Thorns. So you've got 4 objectives to score on. There's nothing weird about the scoring, just the usual 5 for 1, another 3 for 2, and then 2 more for more. And then the extra spice on this battle plan is that you can entangle units within the scoring areas if you're the underdog. So, that's a bit of a blurry wide shot of the battlefield there, but you can see the Kruleboyz in a big block formation there with a couple of units out up to the left. I've got clearly a Star Drake, so let's just dive into my list and then I'll talk you through the thought process behind it as well, because there is a thought process. It's not just a random assortment of units. We've got is that Creeder or Krulder in the chat? Good evening. So we have a Star Drake. This is Lightning Echelon, by the way. So the Star Drake has Hour of Glory. So the Star Drake can take Finest Hour in every one of my turns if it wants to, because it's a big beastie. Nothing to give it a ward save though. So it's just going to be very careful and try not to get killed, and then throw itself in with Finest Hour and eat some things. 5 Liberators, very exciting for them. We've got 1 unit of Questor Soulsworn starting on the table. We've got a Knight Relictor. And we've also got a Knight Judicator making its first appearance as well. So, very exciting times there. Then, a bit of a side view of the Knight Judicator that I've been furiously painting along with the other unit of Questors, which are right here. So they're in the sky. And converted some of them, because you only get really 9 different poses you can make from the Questor box. And obviously I've got 12 of them now, so a couple of them have had their arms switched around for other things. This one here, whose face you can't see at the moment, has a Knight Draconis sword and a shield from something else. This one has a sword from a Vanquisher, I think. And there are a couple of arm swaps on the others, and then some more dynamic head poses going on as well. So 2 units of Questors. So there'll still only be 1 quest-marked objective, but it does mean that this unit can drop down from the sky, and they can still use the objective that the other unit is designating via being on the table. And then also in the sky we have the New Age Wood Chipper, we have the Lord Celestant on Dracoth with the Quicksilver Draft, and 4 concussors, so reinforced concussors. The idea here is that they get dropped down somewhere, preferably in obscuring terrain. The enemy is going to charge in, and I'm going to surround the Lord Celestant in such a way that the concussors can't be engaged in combat without also engaging the Lord Celestant. So they're just going to build a wall of Dracothian flesh and scale around the Lord Celestant, so that if anyone wants to charge them, they're also going within 3 inches of him. And that means that if he uses his Quicksilver, he can pull them into fight right after him. So they're going to get whomped by the Lord Celestant and 4 concussors before they get to strike in an ideal world. Once per game. So that's the plan for them when they drop out the sky. And then if the enemy chooses to leave them alone, then it's not like Annihilators dropping in, where if the enemy leaves them alone, I'm not going to catch them. These guys are actually pretty fast. So if I'm forced to go and engage the enemy with both of these units, I'm quite confident they would be able to make their charges in my turn and both get in and then activate the Quicksilver and all go together if required as well. So we'll see if that combo works out. It's reminiscent of the previous edition, the original Wood Chipper, which for me was the Knight of Zeros surrounded by Retributors. During that season where you had like a bodyguard unit for a hero, and he could pull them in to fight after him, which is a rule that they seem to have given every single army now. A lot of heroes in the game have that ability to pull a specific unit in to fight after them. Then we've got 2 Tempestors, who on paper, their rules look significantly worse than they used to, because the number of shots is down, but they also have if they allocate damage to a unit, so I think the save has to be failed and everything, if one bit of damage goes through from those crossbows, that unit can't all-out defense in the combat phase, so it could be a big deal. And that is my entire list. So, with the Lightning Echelon, obviously I've got the opportunity to put Strike First on one of my units. I've got the Quicksilver. So, going for lots of Strike First here. Got a little bit of shooting with the Knight Judicator and the Tempestors and the breath attacks from all of these. And then the double Questors. So the plan for them. I don't know if anyone is going to leave the quest-marked objective unattended when there's 2 units of Questors. They might, if they don't think it's an important strategic location. So we'll see what happens. But if it does end up unattended, I may take the opportunity to put 2 units of Questors onto the same objective. Because that is 12 Questor Soulsworn on an objective that the enemy would have to chew through if they want to take it back, with a 5+ ward save. So that is going to be quite a tough proposition for anyone. And if any Mega Hammer units do go in there, and I don't like the way the fight's going, it's unlikely they're going to have wiped the Questors out with that many bodies in one round, so then I can just teleport away in my next turn. So that is the plan. We've got Bad Rock in the chat as well. Good evening. So, into the enemy list. We have, I believe this is the Scourge of Gairan killer boss on Great Gnashtooth, who has been given the, is it Slippery Scumbag it's called, so he can run away from combat, and he also can teleport from table edges to different table edges, so it's not just an unlimited teleport, he has to be at the edge and then teleport to another edge, so if he plays the flanks, then he can get involved, and there's usually something useful within striking distance of the flanks, so he's not taking himself out of the game by doing that, usually. There are some monster killers, who obviously would like to be matched up with the Stardrake, but I'm not going to let that happen, that would be very foolish of me. There is the faction terrain. There are some big units of Gut Rippers, which are very scary, because they're 2 wounds each, or 2 health each, should I say, they don't use that word anymore. So it's a big old blob of wounds, and with all the buffs that they're going to have from various characters around them and upgrades and dirty tricks and stuff, you can charge into them, sometimes end up striking last. Then they hit you, they're doing mortals on 5s and 6s sometimes, depending on what's going on around them. So just a very scary blob, and they can get up to 3 attacks each as well. 6 Bolt Boys, who are very scary. I'm a bit concerned about Kruleboyz shooting from my experience of playing in the previous edition, because obviously they did lots of mortal wound shooting, but that is no longer the case. They're not quite as scary anymore. We've got a Shaman with a Pot Grot. We've got Kilbo Baggins, who obviously is aiming right for the Stardrake. Just flat 6 damage against monsters with 2 shots. Very scary for a monster. We've got more Gut Rippers. We've got a Breaker Boss on Maya Brute Troggoth. We have got I think this one is a Marsh Crawler Sloggoth. And then we've also got a Sludge Raker as well. So, quite a scary assortment of horrible things going on here. My battle tactics that I've chosen, I've gone for Master the Paths and Restless Energy. So, I'm moving away from Intercept and Recover. That seems to be the general consensus among certainly the people that I've been listening to, is that maybe Intercept and Recover, while not bad, puts power into the hands of your opponent. And in a game like this, for example, I don't like the idea of my scoring of battle tactics being tied to, for example, killing all these Gut Rippers, because that's going to be a tall order for any of my units to chew through all of them in a sustained fight. So, and then also they could put, for example, on one of the little heroes and just hide it at the back, so you have to really commit to break through to get to it just to score those 5 points. And the chances of chewing through these units early would be quite low as well. So it would leave you with only a limited window towards the end of the game where you could score those points. So I'm going for these two instead. So Master the Paths is slay a hero, more friendly units in neutral territory, or if there isn't neutral territory, no enemy units in friendly territory, and then units in different corners of the battlefield. Then Restless Energy is take an objective off your opponent, which is very easy, especially for armies that can bounce around and teleport all over the place. And then the next one is control all the objectives in enemy territory, which is potentially tricky, less so for Stormcast sometimes. Occasionally the enemy will just camp on their objectives and you have zero chance to do this because they've got too much health there. And then domination, if you control every objective on the battlefield. Again, it's possible, but if the enemy are really embedded on one objective, it's going to be tricky. And with the way scoring is in scenarios now, you don't necessarily have to spread out onto every objective, so they may well just camp on one or two of them for the whole game. My opponent has gone for Master the Paths and Intercept and Recover, so I'm going to have to select 3 of my units that my opponent will try to kill. So, we're both 4 drops, and I choose to go first. And I've chosen... in fact, yeah, you can see the little tokens that my opponent handed me for this game. So I've put a token on the Liberators, so my opponent will want to kill them. The reason for that is that I'm basically choosing to go into this game 100 points down, and the Liberators will play no part in the game other than just being near this objective, because they don't want to give away the victory points. Other than that, they don't have much purpose in this list. The reason I've gone first is that the Killbow Baggins was positioned in such a way that it may well be able to shoot my Stardrake very early in the game, because I had to deploy the Stardrake before the Killbow was deployed. So I decided to go first to avoid that fate, and the Stardrake has just run away, because I'm not planning on sending that straight in. I'm going to hold off and decide where to send that later. I have dropped down the Wood Chipper, so there are a couple of ways you can position them, but it seems like the best way is... maybe the best way might be side on, you could do something similar, but if you have the 2 at the front, who are within coherency of each other, and then the 2 at the back don't necessarily need to be then, as long as they're coherent with the one in front. And then if one of them, for example, gets killed, you'd start taking them off from the back, so you're not breaking coherency by taking them off in weird angles. And then when the enemy charges in, these 2 can pile in and get into range to attack, and these 2 can, if the enemy are like in a line here, they can just like swivel their base a bit, and then these guys push forward 3 and they all get to fight. So there's nowhere that the enemy can position where they're within half an inch of a concussor, but outside of 3 inches of the Lord Celestant. So, potential counters to this would be if I had another unit nearby, the enemy could charge them and then pile into the concussors after I've missed the chance to use Quicksilver on the Lord Celestant. So anyone who has a kind of a walk in combat, or one of those like the Stormdrake Guard have, or some of the Ogre stuff has, where they can charge in and then do an extra move to fight something else afterwards. You don't want any of those things taking place. And what else don't you want? I think that's the main thing. You don't want them to be able to charge something else near you and then pile in. You don't want any way of them getting into combat with this unit without setting off the Lord Celestant at the start of the combat phase, so I'm not putting any units near them to prevent any kind of shenanigans. Another potential way to counter this is if you have, let's say, this unit of Gut Rippers, and you have a line of them when you make the charge. So you put 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and then the others in a bundle back here. They would have to be within 6 inches of the unit you want to hit, though. All of them, which is tricky with that many models, and it wouldn't work if you've just got like 1 model, because you can't string them along. But then what you're hoping is that the Lord Celestant has to strike first with Quicksilver, and then he pulls them in to fight next. So when he strikes, if he kills like 3 guys, suddenly the concussors wouldn't be within 3 inches anymore of the enemy, so they wouldn't be able to pile in, and then you would be able to pile into them. So I'm watching out for anyone trying any of that kind of sneaky stuff where they're trailing off a unit hoping I'll accidentally kill too many of them and take the concussors out of combat. So you want to be careful what kind of units you're matching up against, because some units are more capable of that than others. when there's this many bodies, it's a bit tricky to get all of them in a position where they could pile in and fight and also stay far enough away with enough of them so that killing a few would be enough. But the Lord Celestin, his attacks aren't actually that wildly powerful though. So he's decent, but there's no guarantee he would kill, for example, 4 of the Gut Rippers. Definitely not a guarantee that he would do that. And there's some monsters around here as well, and obviously they wouldn't be able to trail their unit because they're just one big thing. So you've got to be careful who you use this on and what the possible counters are. Then we've got the Knight Relictor just hanging out by the terrain, the portal, because I failed to generate any prayer points, so I wasn't able to translocate him. I've put one of my tokens on him as well, so my opponent wants to kill him. The Knight Judicator's just hanging out on an objective. And I brought in both units of Questor Soulsworn. Now, you may notice that I've totally wiped out this section of the battlefield, but not entirely, because this guy's still alive. Now, I dropped them down here. Then the unit of monster killers redeployed away from me, making it a difficult charge. But because the faction terrain was right there, I was able to charge that first. And because I rolled high enough on the charge, I was then able to get in position and pile in and still punch them. And the other unit, I think, just rolled high on the charge anyway. So they both got in, killed the monster killers and the terrain. And we've got one unit on the terrain already for the ward save, because it's my quest marked objective. And the other unit couldn't quite get far enough onto the objective, or onto the objective to get their ward save yet, but they're less than a 1-inch redeploy away from it. So if the enemy look like they're about to shoot this unit, I can just redeploy 1 inch and get them onto the objective as well next turn. So we've got double Questors, and this area of the battlefield is looking pretty good right now. I'm quite enjoying this big blob. We'll see how they stand up to the Kruleboyz onslaught though, because there is going to be some payback. And I've taken an objective from the enemy, so that's part 1 of Restless Energy, accomplished in turn 1. So it is a 15-point round for the Stormcast. And we were keeping track of this game on the Millarkey website, so I can actually see the scoring going on here as well, which is very exciting. Okay, on to the Kruleboyz. Now, this Finest Hour thing here is obviously not Finest Hour, but it is representing the encrusted weaponry of these Gut Rippers here. And +1 save applied to them as well. There's all kinds of things they can do, different buffs, different tricks. So it's handy to have these. +1 save on this unit as well. And we've got some Stompy Feet coming out to play. And it stomps on one unit of Questors and does 2 damage to one of them. And by the way, I'm using this dice here to represent whether the Questors have used their once per game teleport yet. Because that looks like a bit of a teleporty sort of symbol there, doesn't it? So they've still got the teleport intact. Then, well, this guy decides to teleport from the top left corner down here. So he's got a choice. If he rolls high enough, he could charge the Knight Relictor, who is an intercept and recover target, the Knight Judicator, who's on an objective, or the Questors. I think 2 units of Questors would be a bit much to try and attack, so probably one of these, but he still needs the 9-inch charge. Then the Gut Rippers and the Trog... What's his name again? Let's have a look. Breaker Boss on Maya Brute Trogoth. They are going to try to charge into my wood chipper here, because I can't be shot at because everyone's within 1 inch of the obscuring terrain. So they're going to have to get stuck into combat. Now, what they would like to do, Kruleboyz are uniquely equipped in some ways to deal with this, because they would be able to put Strike Last onto one of my units. Now, to my understanding, if they put Strike Last on the Concussors, my understanding is that would make no difference at all, but correct me if I'm wrong, because when I use Quicksilver to go first and have Strike first with the Lord Celestin, it then says he may then select a unit of whatever it says. I think it says like Extremist Cavalry within his combat range to strike immediately after him. Something to that effect. Would that then bypass strike last, because it's not letting them kind of strike in sequence. They're being pulled in out of sequence to fight. So is that how that would work if they had strike last applied to them? So that's my understanding of reading the rules, but if that's wrong, then let me know. So my understanding is that you would want to put strike last on the Lord Celestant, because that way, if I do use Quicksilver, he would be back to strike normal, so you would get a chance to strike with one of these units first before he goes, and then he would pull the concussors in. So you would hit first with one unit, then I would hit with both, and then your other unit could fight after that. Does my understanding sound correct? And that you'd be better off putting strike last onto the Lord Celestant? Because it's very complicated, so let me know if my understanding is slightly off there. So, we've got some shooting action. You can see I've redeployed both units of Questors onto the objective now. So this is a unit of 6 here, and a unit of 6 there. But they're going to get shot at in a minute. So Killbow Baggins takes aim at some Questors, and I think does 4 wounds, so that's enough to kill one. Because one of them only had 1 wound remaining, so it just kills 2. Then, the Trog and the Gut Rippers both make it into the Wood Chipper. See how that goes for them. And this unit of Gut Rippers in the middle are not so eager to face down all the Questors yet, understandably, but because this is a very significant blob here, until they get softened up, it's going to take a lot of resources to chew through them, with the ward save as well. So it would be risky committing such a valuable unit in this list, and you would have nothing on this side of the table of any significance then. This guy maybe, but he could be anywhere he wants anyway. But all the other good stuff is kind of in this corner. So if they get stuck into a prolonged combat that they're not just wiping the floor with and winning quickly, then that could pose a mobility problem. You can see also that the horrible boss here on the Gnash Tooth gets into the Knight Judicator, chooses to charge the Knight Judicator rather than the Knight Relictor, so prioritising taking an objective and killing a shooting hero rather than killing the intercept and recover target. Well, you can see here that the dirty trick to put strike last onto the Lord Celestant did not work. I think a 2 was rolled and a 3 was required, so I was able to strike first. So the Lord Celestant put all his attacks into the Trog, did quite a lot of damage, and then the concussors went, and I was then able to see how much damage, how much health the Trog had left, and then decide how many attacks to allocate into it. Because I did have a horrible ability of -1 to hit against the Gut Rippers, which is why not that many of them have been killed. But the Trog is dead, and I did kill a few Gut Rippers as well, and they are now going to strike back at the concussors. You can see that the Knight Judicator is dead before even firing a shot in his debut game. So I'm thinking maybe he's not the best guy to put on an objective when there's enemies that can teleport, because it does give your opponent a juicy 2-for-1. They can kill something and take an objective, so maybe let's not have him in such a juicy position there. The Gut Rippers kill 2 concussors, almost kill 3. So I think that's a pretty good outcome for me. We've killed the Trog, killed a few Gut Rippers, and on average, I should be going next. But just because I've got the slight edge, because if it's a tie on the roll-off, I will go next, because we've got the same number of regiments. You can see that the Questors beat up the foot as well, so that manifestation is gone. There is a unit of 6 and a unit of 4 there remaining at the moment. So my opponent is now on 2 objectives, isn't risking going for this one yet. Scores part 1 of Master of the Path by killing a hero, with the Knight Judicator deceased. And that is a 13-point round. So my opponent is the underdog, so he does not hold more objectives than me. So I have a slight lead going into the next round, and this is the state of play. So, if I get the next turn, what would I like to do? I would very much like to get the Stardrake involved in this fight, because I think I could take out that unit quite easily with the remaining concussors, the Lord Celestant and the Stardrake. Hopefully I would get strike first on the Stardrake as well when I charge in. The Liberators are just going to back off and hide if I go next. And I've still got the Tempestors in the sky, by the way. I haven't dropped them down yet, so they could come down as well and also join in. If I could wipe out this unit, I think that would be a big blow to the Kruleboyz. I'm very concerned about the Killbow, obviously. But I just have to make sure, particularly on my turn, that I don't leave the Stardrake as the closest target for covering fire. I do win the roll-off, so I'm going next. And this is my rally roll for the Questors. So I just get both of them back. The 2 casualties come back to life. There they are. So we've got 2 full units of 6 again. And, well, this went very well. Without the involvement of the Stardrake. So the Stardrake did move forwards towards them, but failed its charge. The Tempestors failed their charge as well. But with the little bit of shooting that I did first, the Stardrake just rolled really low on both of the charge attempts. I think the highest I got was like 4 across the 2 dice. So very, very bad. But the Concussors managed to kill the rest of the unit. Then, I don't know whether they killed them off entirely. I think... Hold on, let me go back a sec. So, yeah, I think the Concussors killed a lot of them, and then they attacked the Lord Celestant because the Lord Celestant hadn't struck yet, which is how he's down to 5 wounds, and then he punched and finished off the unit. So that's 1 unit of Gut Rippers down, which is nice. Yep, thumbs down for the Stardrake failing its charge. I've lined up the 2 units of Questors. Now, the one at the back is the one with the token on it, which my opponent wants to kill to get victory points for a battle tactic, and the Knight Relictor is also teleported over there as well. So this is just a really horrible, solid defense wall with a ward save on one of the 4 objectives for this game, and both these units are still free to teleport away whenever they feel like it. So if the big unit of Gut Rippers over here is threatening to come this way, then I'll stay there and fight for a bit, and if it's not going well, then teleport away with whatever's left and just leave them up here on their own and not worry about this objective anymore. If they start moving away, then I don't need to leave everyone here anymore, so I can teleport one or both of these units away to do something else. The Tempestors are also in as well, as I said. I decided to just leave this guy alone, not going for that objective at all yet, and I'm feeling pretty good. Wiping out this side of the board helped quite a bit. I think I finest houred the Lord Celestant there. And yeah, looking pretty good, but there's still plenty of Kruleboyz in there, and the scoring is still very close. So into my opponent's turn, and the great Gnashtooth boss is moving up, looking to maybe get a charge in here. Because what it can do is charge in to the Knight Relictor and then drag him away so the Questors can't fight him. The Bolt Boys have also dropped down there as well to try and soften up with shooting before the Gut Rippers charge in, and the Killbow. So with all that shooting, 3 of the Questors drop from the front unit, and I'm not too disappointed if that unit dies because they're not worth any extra points. The back unit is the one that wants to stay alive. And I did all-out defense against the Bolt Boys, and as a result didn't lose any further models. So, the Gnashtooth does drag the Knight Relictor away, which I'm not very pleased about, so he could well kill the Knight Relictor now, but if he doesn't, then I'm going to be able to try and translocate away next turn on a 4+. Assuming I get the next turn, otherwise it would be more difficult. So the Gut Rippers do get into the big Questor blob, and they split their attacks. Well, they have to, because some of them can't reach the back unit. So some of them have to fight this unit. And I all-out defense the back unit, because the ones at the front, I've decided there's only 3 of them. I'll just let them die, and I could always bring back another unit of 3 at some point if I need to. But the back unit is the one that's preserving battle tactic points, so they just need to live, and then they can teleport away if it's not going well. The front unit does get killed as a result, but the back unit doesn't take too much damage at all. I think I just lose 1 and another wound, so not too much damage done there, and then I do a little bit of damage back to the Gut Rippers. Not too significant though. So that unit of Questors are just going to teleport away in my next turn if they get the chance. You can see there has been a bit of a spreading out here. I'm kind of glad all the shooting has focused on my units that have a ward save, rather than Stardrake. Of course, the Concussors and the Lord Celestant here are near the obscuring terrain, so they can't be targeted at the moment by shooting anyway. So my opponent just scores 10 points for that round, and I've got a decent lead at the moment going into round 3. And let's have a look. So I win the roll-off again, which you'd expect on average it should stay with the priority player from the last round, usually. And even when it doesn't, because the score isn't that one-sided, you can't necessarily always afford to take a double. And what I'm finding is that it might seem like it's not very punishing taking a double turn, because you just can't score battle tactics that turn, but often you can satisfy the conditions of a battle tactic and then cash it in later. But that's only really valid early in the game, especially if it's one of the early parts of a battle tactic, because if you get into turns 4 and 5 and you haven't started scoring it yet, then taking a double suddenly means that you're only going to be able to score one part of it in turn 5 if you take the double going into turn 4, for example. So it's a good reason to try and score tactics early when you can. It's also a good reason that if you're thinking, well, they've got intercept and recover, the unit I've got the treasure on is going to die anyway, so I might as well let them die now, because they'll die at some point, then it's still worth holding out as long as possible, because they just might not have enough time to cash in all 3 parts of it by the time they do kill the units. They have to start killing something. They have to have killed something by the end of turn 3, otherwise they physically can't score all of it. And that's without factoring in taking any doubles for turns they just can't score at all. So you want to keep those units alive for a little bit if you can, so that it's possible your opponent can't get the maximum. So, we're in my turn again. You can see that unit Questors teleported onto this objective down here, and then charged in to finish off the Kruleboyz, because if I clear out enemy units from my territory, that's part of a battle tactic satisfied. The Tempestors were coming over to aid in that as well. With the shooting I put into them, they had 1 wound left on them, so I had to make the charge with the Questors, and thankfully did, and finished them off. You can see the Stardrake's been finest houred again. The Knight Relictor teleported out of combat down into this corner where it's safe, and the Liberators are just spreading out a bit, because it's never really safe when you're near the flank with that Gnashtooth boss that can come on, like here. And, well, this is an unfortunate incident here. I thought, I'll just take this top right objective. I'll move out of the obscuring terrain with 2 Concussors and the Lord Celestant. I'll charge and kill the... Which one's this? Is it the Sloggoth? Yeah, the Marsh Crawler Sloggoth. And if I get a long enough charge, I can even go for the Kruleboyz. But the Kruleboyz used covering fire, and I was not that concerned because they haven't got any monsters there, so it's not going to be guaranteed 6 wounds even if it gets through. But it managed to do enough to kill both the Concussors with covering fire. So the Lord Celestant charged into the Sloggoth, and then did very badly in his attack rolls against it, resulting in his death as well. So I failed to get the objective despite 2 good units going over there to try and take it. So that went very horribly wrong indeed. The Stardrake got into combat with the Sludge Raker with Finest Hour. I was hoping to do some good damage, but didn't actually do very well on the rolls though, the old Stardrake. And then was hit back and took 8 wounds himself. So a bit of a back and forth fight there. Now, I'm still not too disappointed with the state of the table. I'm doing okay on battle tactics. I cleared off everything from this side of the table, so I am going to score 1 for this turn. Stardrake's looking a little bit vulnerable. It's important, if I can, get the Stardrake to survive an enemy turn, because that is blocking a good path into my territory through the middle here, leading to juicy things like Tempestors, and then you can start going for my scoring, or units that are going to score the battle tactic for my opponent, including these Questors. So, you can see that I've scored 3 of my battle tactics now, because earlier on I killed a hero, and in this turn I took all enemy units out of my territory, because there's no neutral territory on this battle plan. And then turn 3 for the enemy, so a decent scoring turn for me again. So we've got various things getting ready to attack the Star Drake there. We've got, and I think it's this big guy here, I think, that builds up the tokens when a dirty trick is failed, and then he can use those to modify future dirty trick rolls. I think it's this guy here. The Gnashtooth is trying to get to the table edge so it can then teleport later, and the Gut Rippers are going for my Questors, who need to be killed for objective purposes. So my opponent, if he wants to hit the max on that battle tactic, on Intercept and Recover, has to kill one of my units that's carrying treasure this turn. Otherwise, the maximum can't be scored physically. The Gut Rippers do make like a 12-inch, 11-inch charge though, and get into the Questors. So, could potentially kill them this turn. I don't have a ward save anymore because I moved away from my quest-marked objective. And they knock them down to 1 model on 1 wound, which is a big deal. On the one hand, this single solitary Questor is going to die, because if I break away from combat, I would take a mortal wound and die. If I stay there and I'm in a fight, I'm almost certainly going to take 1 more wound and die. But because it will be after turn 3, the fact that this Questor has lived means that my opponent can no longer score the max on Intercept and Recover, because of that 1 remaining wound. The Star Drake manages to kill the Sludge Raker in combat and is dropped down to 6 wounds this turn. You can see that this little banner hero got in as well and managed not to be eaten by the Star Drake pre-combat. So, the Kruleboyz are down to a Killbow. That's dead. I think there's another picture with that removed in a second. There we go. So Killbow is still up, which is obviously scary, and is scaring the Star Drake. We've got the Sloggoth. We've got a couple of foot heroes, the Gnashtooth, and the Gut Rippers. I've got 1 Questor on a single wound, 2 Tempestors, a Star Drake that's not very healthy, the Knight Relictor and the Liberators down in this corner. But importantly, I can bring 1 unit back to life at half strength, and I do have the opportunity to bring back 2 Concussors or 3 Questor Soulsworn. If I need a unit for mobility to drop onto an objective and maybe get to another objective later, then the Questors would be good for that. If I want something that can do some killing, then 2 Concussors can do a pretty good job there. And because they are Extremist Chamber, then with Lightning Echelon, they are eligible to potentially get Strike First on the charge, as are the Tempestors. The Tempestors haven't felt that significant yet, but they feel fairly solid actually. They're mainly just there for the utility of shooting at the enemy to prevent them using all-out defense, which is very useful against big blobs like this that would ordinarily want to use all-out defense. Because there's not multiple small units where no specific one would particularly benefit so much, but 1 big giant blob is going to benefit heavily from having +1 to save. So taking that option away from them is very good. So there's the scoring at the end of round 3. Another not too bad scoring round. It's fairly easy to score 8 or 10 points on this one. And oh yes, so that picture is a bit premature, but I get round 4. Now my opponent actually won the roll off here, but chose not to take the turn, and I think that is a good idea, because my opponent is obviously way behind on scoring battle tactics at the moment. So that means that if my opponent had taken the double, because there's not a big enough deficit between the points for each side, then my opponent would not be able to score battle tactics in turn 4 if he'd taken the double. And I think that would have been a big deal. And the amount of stuff I have on the table, giving me the turn isn't the most outrageous thing, because I don't have that much killing power actually on the table, so I'm not just going to wipe you out if you give me the turn. So, on my turn 4, I bring back 2 Concussors onto this objective, and with their breath attack, they actually kill the kill bow before it gets a chance to use covering fire, which is great. And obviously it could have tried to redeploy away, but if you do that, then you're missing the opportunity to use covering fire. So I understand why the kill bow thought the maximum damage that's going to come in is 6 from them. So let's have a look. Kill bow was there. I don't think I was able to shoot it with anything else, so I think it was purely the concussors. I remember actually what happened was, it looks like the maximum damage is 6 from the 2 attacks, but they have crit 2 hits, and one of the hit rolls was a 6, so it's actually 3 that ended up wounding. So there was enough that got through to kill it. And obviously there's any exciting moment when you get to roll multiple D3s all at once, because I've got actual D3s in my dice box. The Tempestors charged in and killed the wizard, so you can see the manifestation has disappeared there as well. The Stardrake again with 3 dice failed to roll the 6 and eat this thing, and the Sloggoth is involved in this fight now. Stardrake down to 5 wounds, but it's just Finest Houring back to back. It's just really strong ability to use on a Stardrake with the Hour of Glory enhancement. It's just very good on any kind of... Is there anything even comparable to a Stardrake that can do something like that? Because you can't put enhancements on the other big dragons. So I think the Stardrake pretty much is the best choice for that. Finest Houring in every one of your turns, potentially. Just so for half the game, you're spending it with +1 save and +1 to wound, without having to use commands or anything. So it's just really good. Tempestors doing the work, killing a wizard, and they're now in a prime position to get onto this objective later. The one Questor stayed in combat valiantly, but is now dead. So my opponent will be able to score at the end of round 4 for killing that intercept and recover unit. The other 2 are still hiding in the corner. Stardrake kills the Sloggoth. And I only score 8 points though, because no battle tactic condition satisfied in that round. Turn 4 for the enemy. I managed to translocate the Knight Relictor in my opponent's turn. And a dirty trick enables the Gut Rippers to teleport over here, and they're going to try and charge one of my units that could give them victory points. But I'm running away, and I redeploy the Relictor to get away. And then this Gnashtooth is dropping in to try and get the concussors as well. But I think they mostly fail their charges. And then Stardrake is put down to 2 wounds with various abilities, but then eats the banner dudes. The Stardrake is still alive. My opponent does score 15 points for that round as we run out of dice to score it with. And you can see the Kruleboyz are looking a bit thin on the ground suddenly. There's only really these 2. And there's quite a bit more Stormcast stuff, although the Stardrake's only on 2 wounds. Then, going into the final round, part of the battle tactic that was satisfied there, by the way, was killing the treasure-carrying unit in the previous turn. I get first crack at round 5. So again, my opponent wins the roll-off, but can't take the double. Because if my opponent takes the double, you can't have any more battle tactics, so it's pointless trying to kill these units. So all you can do is score objectives. You can teleport units to get onto other objectives, so you could probably score 10. And I think I was like 8 points ahead at that stage. So that would give you a small lead, which I'll easily be able to get back when I have my turn, because I can just walk onto some objectives that you're not on and probably just pile in and kill something on one of the objectives as well, hopefully. So I can understand giving away the turn here. And that's only if everything goes right as well. You could fail the dirty trick and they could get stuck there and you wouldn't be able to get maximum points for the objectives. There's also the possibility I could use a counter prayer and translocate the Knight Relictor onto the middle of an objective and make it difficult for you to take one of them. So a lot of odds against scoring big if you take the double. So my opponent gives it away and is hoping that my hammer units aren't sufficient to take out what is remaining. So, my turn 5, the concussors get into the Snatcher. It's not the Snatcher boss, is it? It's the what's it called again, this boss? Let's pull this up here. There we go, Killer Boss on Great Gnashtooth, that's the one. So I wanted the Star Drake to charge in as well, and kind of sandwich it in so it couldn't slippery scumbag its way out of combat. The Star Drake does get into the Gut Rippers and eats some of them. Kills some of them, but then gets killed. Concussors are still alive though. Tempesta's just hanging out on this objective. Knight Relictor hanging out on this objective. So, I managed to score big 15 points, and you can see, look at these shiny new Caradron Overlords dice. I'm very impressed with these dice. Normally when GW bring out new dice, I think they look cool, and then, oh, actually, they're totally unreadable. Because the colours just don't work. Like, they're both dark, for example. But these are actually very bright, orangey gold, and then the black is very strong as well. So, I think they're very readable, these dice. Very impressive. Very impressed with them. Maybe my favourite GW dice, so I've got them ready for when my Caradron Overlord's force is ready, which shouldn't be long, hopefully. I've got the Ironclad back on the painting table. Turn 5, my opponent, and we're figuring out what can be scored to try and do something, going through all the possibilities. And we figure out that if my opponent could satisfy like 2 different battle tactics and take all the objectives, but in the end we realise that it's not really physically possible to do all that, so you might as well just score as much as you can, get this objective, don't manage to kill much, only score 8 in the end, and that is how the game ends. So it is 64 points for the Stormcast, 56 for the Kruleboyz. So I think, despite having no magic in my list, I think that was quite good. I think the wood chipper is going to be battle plan dependent. There may not be a good place where you can put them, where they can be on the obscuring terrain and also in position to be useful in the game. But the fact that they're fast means that that's slightly mitigated, so I'm not too worried about that. I just have to be wary of armies that can walk into combat against them and not, or do like an extra large pile in or something to get to them, and make sure I don't make a positioning mistake to allow the enemy to, out of sequence, get into combat with them, which would then possibly deny my Quicksilver usage. I like the double Questors. I think they did a really good job tying up that massive unit of Gut Rippers and then teleporting away and scoring. In other situations, maybe I would have brought another unit of Questors down from the sky, a unit of 3 after they were killed, but I felt like the Concussors were the ones that were going to be able to do the most damage if they got in, and ultimately they did kill the Killbow. And the Concussors do have, let's see, the Concussors have got 1 more wound than the 3 Questors would have had, so they're more likely to survive the covering fire of the Killbow and then get the charge in onto it, which is something I was thinking about as well. It's just slightly more wounds coming in from there. But overall, I like the list, and I'm just going to run this as it is at the tournament this weekend, and we'll see how that does. See how it does against other opposition, because Kruleboyz have been something that I've struggled with the amount of strike last they can fire out, so that's why I've loaded up this list with strike first abilities. So we'll see how it does against lists that I haven't specifically built to try and tackle, so I'm not sure what could be a struggle. We'll see what kind of lists I come up against and whether I'm equipped to deal with them. But I think I've got some good tools here. I've got good wound blobs with the Questors, got good damage units. Not like super elite damage units, there's no like Annihilators with Grand Hammers in here. But hopefully more reliable at getting into combat hammer units. So we'll see how it goes, and you can look forward to a report. Probably Sunday evening, possibly Monday. We'll see how tired I am after 5 red hot, spicy, tingling, succulent games of Age of Sigmar over the weekend. And I think that is about wrapping things up here. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, obviously. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. There is various social media shenanigans links down below. And if you want to see more battle reports and tournament reports, and you want me to buy even more Stormcast, why not pledge your entire life savings in the Patreon or PayPal links down there as well, to keep the lights on of this lighthouse in the sea of hobby misery, so you can be guided away from the shores where you could have a hobby shipwreck. That's a thing. Yeah, you can be guided away from that towards the seas of hobby fulfillment. Let's go with that. Okay, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and all that remains to be said is good night out there, whatever you are.